Okay, we're now going to talk about the automobile purchase decision. There are actually two topics in this course covering automobiles. One is from the standpoint of buying the automobile, and the second one has to do with the insurance coverage on that automobile, which comes in a later chapter. So we're going to focus this class just on the purchase decision and things you need to think about as you evaluate buying a car. Okay, this may seem fairly obvious, but a lot of people make the mistake of not really evaluating on the front end all of the variables that would come into play with respect to their needs for the automobile. What are they expecting that automobile to do? For example, if a family plans on traveling, or if you plan on traveling and maybe pulling a trailer, pulling a boat, pulling U-Haul trailers, moving from here to there, you're going to be wanting an automobile that has the power to do that. Also, an automobile that would have a towing package that's capable of handling the type of load that you would have. Would this be a business use car? Are you going to be taking clients out, customers out for lunches and using it for travel and for sales type events? That would require you to maybe evaluate cars that are more comfortable, more appealing to clients. So it's a wide range of issues that come into play here. So consider also just the mileage, the engine size, the miles per gallon this automobile is going to be getting. Is it going to be used on just flat long distance travel, or is it going to be local shorter commutes? This all can have a bearing on which automobile may be best for you. So this page and the next, I think the next slide, they both just give you some examples or some questions that you may want to think about as you are evaluating the best car for you. I can promise you that I have made many mistakes. In fact, just last year, I made the mistake of purchasing actually a truck that was much too large for my needs, and there are a number of different ways where that had an impact on us, from our garage size to the engine size to the towing package and other characteristics of the automobile that just didn't work out, and I hadn't evaluated that on the front end. A much smaller truck would have just been perfect for just about all of our needs that we had. But I made the mistake of getting excited about this vehicle and not really doing my homework. So, it happens, I guess, to every one of us in certain areas. I've certainly had my share of mistakes. So just read through this slide. We'll jump to the next slide, give you some additional things to think about. How much can you afford, obviously? What's in your budget? Does it make sense to even purchase an automobile at this point? Naturally, if you have a car that's wearing out or worn out, or safety is an issue in terms of maybe having a reliable car, then it can certainly make sense to go ahead and purchase a vehicle. And of course, the big decision then is, do we look at a new vehicle or do we look at one that's a used? And there are many illustrations that are out there from a financial planning standpoint that would suggest that individuals, especially starting out with their careers, may be much better off in getting a good kickstart on their financial plan by purchasing a used automobile, having a smaller automobile payment, and hopefully there would be some discretionary income that you could then sock away in a 401k retirement plan or an IRA, individual retirement account, build up that emergency fund. And so I have in the past used illustrations with students to show how an individual who purchased an automobile could have paid $20,000 for a new Honda at the time, but instead they purchased one for $12,000 or $10,000 and used that difference to invest in an IRA or a retirement account. And they did this for about 20 or 30 years. And the amazing thing that happened down the road was that side fund continued to grow and grow and grow. The money that was not spent on car payments was actually growing in a retirement account. And at some point, I believe the illustration I gave was when the individuals in their 50s, they were able to purchase all new automobiles, all high quality automobiles, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 automobiles, paid cash for these automobiles, and they had a retirement account which had close to $500,000 in that retirement account, simply because they had purchased a used automobile for a number of years, and they invested what they could have spent on a much nicer, newer automobile. Yet they purchased a used, more reliable automobile and just had a different strategy. And that is an excellent strategy to think about. So let's work through this quickly. Have you built up your auto fund so you can pay cash for your car? Do you plan to finance the automobile? If you do, the question arises, through whom? Will it be through the automobile dealership? Would it be through your local bank or your credit union? What would be the interest rate that would be charged if you purchased that, if you financed that automobile? So knowing how to not only price shop for the automobile, but also shop on the financing side. Very critical piece to ensure that you do not pay too much for the automobile and the cost of financing that. Performance and reliability. We'll get to those in just a minute. I would first like to talk about a Carfax report. But so performance and reliability, definitely important to think about. The last thing I enjoy doing is sitting in a dealership in a waiting room an entire afternoon, or having to drop an automobile off and pick it up several days later, or maybe even weeks later, because the car has issues that, had I known in advance, I never would have purchased that car. And there are plenty of surveys out there that would show the reliability of certain automobiles, certain brands, and certain models of those brands. And then finally, cost of insuring different types of vehicles. Insurance can cost a reasonable amount, or you may be paying quite a bit simply because of the style of the car that you're buying. Naturally, the more sporty car, the more aggressive automobiles, that they may come at a higher cost insurance-wise, simply because the insurance company is kind of profiling us and looking at our driving habits and looking at the automobiles we're purchasing. And so if we're buying a souped-up Mustang with 500 plus horsepower and aftermarket gear put on that automobile, the insurance is going to be quite costly compared to other automobiles. So you need to factor that into the budget if that's your plan to have that. I'm certainly not saying not to buy a car like that, but a lot of people make these decisions, then they find on the back end how much it's costing to actually maintain those automobiles. Okay, Carfax. Carfax is a report that you should always run when you're considering purchasing a used automobile, simply because of the history that it provides. Not only will it provide the mileage as it changes ownership, it will also show where this automobile has been held. Was it purchased up north, up in Minnesota somewhere, where there's maybe a lot of snow and a lot of salt on the roads and things? How long was it in Minnesota? Was it then sold down in Charlotte? How long was it there? Also looking at the number of miles that were put on the automobile. These types of reports, Carfax, and there may be others, but I think Carfax is the primary one, can give you a lot of information on the history of that automobile and how well it was maintained. What I really love to see is a Carfax report where you have an individual, one owner car, maybe two owners automobile, and they take this to the dealership routinely for oil changes. Going to the dealership can be expensive, especially for routine things like oil changes that you could have performed just down the road at the local oil and lube shop. So for an individual who cares enough about their automobile to take it back to the dealership for recalls, to have those repairs done, for routine maintenance, tire rotation, other types of things. Generally, those cars, you can kind of get a sense that that car has been a well-maintained automobile. Also, it would give you information generally about damages, accidents, accident reports when the accident occurred, whether it was a minor accident or a major accident, and other helpful information. So always, I would suggest that you would always purchase a Carfax report, and I believe they cost between $30 and $35. Sometimes you can get a bundle. For example, if you're looking at 2 or 3 cars, you can purchase a package deal on Carfax where you can maybe for $50 or $60 obtain 3 reports on 3 different cars that you're considering. So keep that in mind as well. Now I'd like to move on to one of my favorite ways of researching automobiles, and that is the Consumer Reports issue of the Automobile Reviews. In the past, Consumer Reports has published, it used to publish a nice thick book that you could purchase, or magazine, or each year, and it would have all of the models. I mean, just about every model that you could imagine, make and model, automobile dealerships throughout the world. And basically what it has is a collection of consumer responses to questions that the Consumer Reports organization would ask. Generally, I think it's 20,000 plus. I'm not sure if that's their cutoff point, where they want a certain number of surveys to come in so that they can ensure that there's no major margin of error there, that it's a reliable survey. And so I have used that probably since I was a teenager. And of course, it's online now. And this is just a little snippet of the type of thing or the type of information that you can pull from that report or that magazine called Consumer Reports. What I'm showing here are just two automobiles. I just pulled randomly. I tried to find a car that had high ratings and then a car that had more blemished ratings, you might say. And so what they'll do is they'll give it a color coding. Green means thumbs up. It means nice, high quality, favorable response. It's like getting a 5-star review on Amazon. And then, of course, the red means watch out. This could be a lemon, or there are issues with this. And the nice thing about Consumer Reports is that even though it is small print here, they will have an automobile, each automobile that they review, it'll be broken down into some, let's just say 20, maybe 25 categories that are rated. Air conditioning, braking system, seat comfort, road noise, engine performance, transmission performance, all types of body integrity, paint job. They'll cover all these categories and let consumers then comment on that. And they'll do that over a period of years. And this is where the real magic comes in. When you can see a Consumer Reports report on an automobile that covers, say, 10 years, okay, from 2010 to 2020, you can kind of get an idea of how that car, the manufacturer, whether it is a well-made car or not, because you'll start to see some patterns. For example, if the braking system is terrible, or maybe the electrical system is just no good in a particular car, and I did have one in the 70s, which had not a very good electrical system. But what I found out by looking at that report is there were those red dots where other consumers had the same issue. So anytime I'm looking at an automobile, I've done this, I guess, my entire life, since I was a teenager. I will pull up Consumer Reports and dial up that manufacturer, Toyota, Honda, Subaru, Ford, and I will look at the report on, number one, the particular year that I'm interested in. If I'm interested in a Ford F-150 2018, I'll go to that year and I'll look right down the list to see whether there are green marks there. And then I'll look back at previous years and in future years from 2018 forward to now to see how well it's performed. So if it's consistently green marks, then you can feel fairly comfortable you have a reliable automobile. And I've always found this with, well, there are certain models, there are exceptions, but Lexus, Toyota, Honda, these brands really stand out for their green marks. And I'm looking here to see if I do not have my reading glasses. So, oh, here they are. Maybe I should wear them. This is what do we have here? A Lexus. Okay, I can barely read that. This is a Lexus 2016, 15, 14, 13. And if you look down in the category here, I'm not going to read each of the items here, but as you can see, very good. I mean, basically the highest ratings you can get in so many categories. And you probably already knew that Lexus is a nice automobile. But in contrast, I've jumped over and I found another vehicle, which again is a popular vehicle. We have a 2015. This is the Jeep Cherokee. And as you can see, you start to, in this overall reliability verdict from 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So for 4 or 5 straight years, you have average to below average markings. And all this is, I mean, the upshot of this is to let you know that with these particular automobiles, and they're, again, depending on the brands you're buying, there's a history there, and you can get a general idea or have a general idea of how well that automobile may perform. There are always exceptions. It could be the one you're looking at was driven into the ground, or it is has some issues that are kind of an exception to the rule. But just keep that in mind. Let me see what else. Oh, another thing that you can do here is comparing automobiles. In this case, I have a Toyota Prius, a Tiguan, and I guess that's how you say that, and a Toyota Camry, 3 different automobiles. And again, looking at the, looking at the ratings here. Now, if I were to click on some of these items here, it would drill down into literally pages in some cases of additional information, including a road test that the Consumer Reports staff performed on these automobiles. So a lot more information there. Just keep in mind that you can make very valuable comparisons. Here's the I think one of the most important points is know the name of that report. Consumer Reports, not Consumer Digest, not Road and Track or something like that. There are a lot of magazines out there. This is specifically called Consumer Reports, and you'll probably see that again on a test question or practice quiz. Okay, so one other way that they cut the information for you is, I say here, they provide research on the best and worst cars by different price ranges, cars of different ages, which cars hold up best that are more than 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old. The best SUVs, maybe what are the best cars for hauling, or best automobiles for pulling an RV or boats, things like that. They have them broken down. As you can see here, there are a lot of different features. They have the best and worst cars in a number of different categories. And helpful advice, how to get a great deal on a used automobile. Again, these are articles that they produce there. Okay, just some tips now as we look at purchasing an automobile, whether it is a new car or a used automobile from a dealership. Just a few general tips. One is, if you're looking at a new car, there are ways to come close to finding the dealer cost or the dealer invoice for that automobile. Now, this is not going to be the true final dealer cost to the dealer. Let's be sure we understand what we mean by dealer versus manufacturer, or hard time saying that word. The manufacturer of the car is, let's just say, Toyota USA. Okay, Toyota USA, they manufacture this in Texas, and that car is then shipped to Charlotte to end up on a dealer parking lot or a dealership. Okay, it ends up at that dealership. Now, that dealership has to pay Toyota for that automobile. Okay, they're buying that merchandise, that automobile, to sell to the consumers. Okay, so they have a dealer cost. So generally there are several, I think, websites where you can come close to obtaining or finding what the dealer paid for that automobile. Not necessarily to the penny, but within a reasonable range, especially if you can spec it out, give the exact specifications of that exact automobile, then you may be able to come close to what the dealer paid for that. However, that is not, you may also want to keep in mind, though, this is not necessarily what the dealer ends up at the end of the day after the car sold. Let's just say the dealer cost actually would be less than that. The reason is because of a rebate. Okay, a rebate that Toyota, let's just say Toyota in Texas, pays that dealer once that car is sold. This is referred to, and you need to know this, as the dealer holdback. Okay, the dealer holdback. Basically what this means is, once that car is sold, let's just say the dealer invoice, and they may show this to you, say, look, we paid $20,000 to Toyota Dallas to have this car shipped over, and we'll just show you, we're happy to open the books and show you our dealer cost here, so you can see we're not making a lot of money here. We don't have a large markup. Well, on the back end, after that car is sold, in many cases, again, there are a lot of different financial arrangements that they have between the dealer and the manufacturing company, but one common that's used is this, referred to as a dealer holdback. Once that car is sold, they may receive back a rebate of some 2 or 3% of the cost of that car. So on a 3% rebate on a $20,000 car, we're looking at $600 more coming back to that dealership. So their dealer cost was not really $20,000. It was $19,400 if they received a $600 rebate. So keep that in mind. Dealer holdback is the amount that the dealer receives in the form of a rebate from the manufacturing company after the car is sold. Okay, a few other straightforward tips. One is do not assume that you are expected to pay the sticker price on an automobile. That's not where you start with the negotiations. They would love for you to pay that sticker price. Every car is going to have a sticker price, which has this on the side of the car. It has all of the base cost of the automobile plus all the add-ons, which literally would be thousands of dollars to end up at the sticker price or the kind of the retail price of the automobile. So I would frame it differently, and that is what you want to do is have the discussion where you're starting from their cost and letting them then justify why you would be paying more than a smaller amount over that dealer cost. Now, of course, they have to make a profit. The dealer has to make a profit. There have to be commissions that are paid to the individual that's selling the automobile. But it's much easier to keep the cost fairly reasonable when you're working from that baseline and letting them then add on or justify adding those additional fees. And you can, of course, question each one of those additional charges above that cost or that dealer cost. When you're starting at a sticker price and trying to work down, it's much more difficult to really, I think, get to a price that you may be satisfied with, at least with respect to what the car is really worth on average in the marketplace. Another tip is to avoid talking about, and this may be something they will try to find out about you within minutes of your being on the lot or in the dealership, because they'll want to know where you're from, maybe what you do for a living, and they would like to know maybe how much you had in mind in terms of a car payment. Okay, so that would be in fact, I just wouldn't even go there with respect to talking about how much you can afford in terms of a car payment or how much you've budgeted to set aside for a car, because they can certainly make that work for you. Let's just say that you say, well, I think I could pay $300 a month or $350 a month. Well, the dealership, through their finance department, can easily make that happen. Regardless of the price of the car, they can make the payment $300 or $350 to fit that budget. Where things will change behind the scenes is that, well, your payment may, instead of being a 3-year payment or a 5-year payment, it may be stretched out to 7 years. But they made that payment $300 that you wanted, as you had hoped that you would have. So that needs to stay out of the discussion. Basically, what you want is what is referred to by those who really know how to negotiate is the out-the-door price on this automobile. I would like to know what that car, if I were to hand you a check today, right now for that automobile, what is the out-the-door price? That means sales tax. That means everything that you've included or that you're going to include this automobile. What is that price going to be? And so that way you have kind of a benchmark to work from. And you can, of course, compare also with other dealerships. Instead of trying to work on this financing side where it can get very murky very quickly, and you may not really quite understand exactly how the numbers flow. Just finding out the price of the car that they'll sell out the door is probably the primary goal that you would have, or at least that I would recommend that you have. Okay, something else to think about as you're purchasing an automobile, and that is to have an understanding of how the profits are earned at a dealership. It may surprise you that about 50% of the profits of a dealership are going to come through the parts and service department. So the dealership has definitely an incentive to, number one, provide good service for you, provide a good experience for you, but also they definitely want you to be coming back to have your service done there, because 50%, the average is 49.6, I think, according to one study, of the gross profits of a dealership are through that particular division. It may surprise you also to know that only about 25% of the profits are through the actual new car sales. So they are not making a ton of profit off of the new cars. So they're banking on return business for the customer to come back and have the parts and service department taking care of that automobile after the sale is done. And also, it may interest you to know that about 25% of the dealer's profits are through used car sales, which brings up another point that I hadn't thought about until now. And I think there's a slide on this that's coming up. Be sure to keep the new car purchase and the any trade-in that you may have a separate discussion. As we said before, if you've identified an automobile, what you're going to want is the best price they can give you out the door, preferably in writing. I mean, I would prefer that being writing. You know, send you an email, get it down on paper, show me exactly what I'd pay after all taxes, everything is said and done. And that lets them know also that you may be price shopping, that you may go to another dealership and see how that compares to another dealership, the out the door price. When you start bringing financing into that discussion or trade-ins, again, the water can get very muddy and it may be very difficult to really know, are you really getting anything in terms of trade-in value on your car? Because while they may say, we'll give you a high trade-in value on your automobile, but you may find also that the car that they're selling you, that markup that they have is going to remain high. They may still have a high retail, so they pay you more for your used car than you may get elsewhere, but you may find that they're not going to knock off from their retail price very much. So keeping that out of the discussion, just saying, well, I haven't done. One of the best things I think you could do would be to just say you haven't decided yet. You haven't decided what you're going to do with your other car. You may keep it, you may sell it, you haven't decided. Let's focus on this car that I'm looking at right now. What's your out the door price on this car? So that helps you keep these transactions clean to get the best deal. So if you have found yourself in a situation where you have a used automobile, you'd like to purchase another car, or either at a dealership or some other place, should you sell your car yourself through Facebook or some other online type auction, Auto Trade or something like that? And the advantage of doing that, of course, is that you can generally get more for your automobile. Get their true market value of your automobile if you were to market it online, having done your research on the value of your automobile compared to others with the same amount of mileage, the same amount of performance, reliability, that type of thing. If it's a sound automobile, in good shape, excellent condition, good condition, you can find a lot of comparables out there and come up with a pretty good idea of what you may be able to get for your automobile. When it comes to actually doing the transaction, this is where you have to be very careful and very meticulous to be sure that you follow especially the state rules, and also to avoid any scams or losing your money or getting into some type of issue that you have to unwind over a number of months because something went wrong. Number one is be sure that if you're selling an automobile, that you're going to have a solid form of payment, that we're not dealing with internet and text messages saying that they're going to wire money here or there, or that they're going to wire some money now and some later, that type of thing. The way I like to do it is I like to go to my bank if I'm going to purchase an automobile or even sell an automobile. I'll give them the choice. I'll say we can go to my bank or we can go to your bank. If there's, whichever is more convenient. I really don't have a preference, but what I would like to have is a bank kind of being an intermediary there, someone where they can actually see the papers that are changing hand, like if it's a cashier's check, a bank check that they're trying to give you. Is it legitimate? Is it a forgery? Is it fake? Or even dollar bills. If you want cash or they're bringing you cash, is this a forgery? Or is it counterfeit money? So I like to let the teller count the cash. I like to let the teller look at the actual document that they're giving me to be sure it's done that way, instead of just at my house or their house and this paperwork changing hands. So that's one thing. Number two is, have your title in hand. Be sure that you have your title to the car, and of course, that you don't have joint owners. But that could be a problem if you're a joint owner with someone else and they're not present at that sale. So don't want to make that mistake. Everyone gets ready to sell and they're a party that's necessary to the transaction is not showing up. So being sure that you have clean title in hand, that there are no liens. Now, basically a lien is where if you purchased a car and you haven't paid the loan off, you'll see on the front of that title that the bank, the financing company will have their name on the front of that title. And so that title will not be able to change hands. It's not really a clean title if it has a lien attached to it. So you'd want that loan to be paid off and have a good title without that lien attached to it. that would be the preference. Also, having this done in front of a notary. I've had this happen on numerous occasions to where the person I was either selling or buying an automobile from would tell me, oh, we have a notary back at the office. Just sign it and I'll take it back and I'll just tell them you signed it. That's not the way the law works. And so you really want these transactions to be as clean as possible. So, and by the letter of the law. So be sure that you follow the rules regarding signing documents in front of a notary. So the person who is signing over the title, they're giving up something basically. Okay. So it's not the buyer who has to have that notary. It's the seller that's transferring title. They have to have a notary. They have to show their driver's license or some form of identification that's required by the notary. And the notary would then say, yes, this person, Kevin Huff, signed, this is his signature, signed before me on this date, and they stamp that with their notary stamp. I do not allow that to be done outside of my presence. I would insist that a notary be there. Now, the good news is that this could be done at the bank. They have, if you're a banking customer, that typically they do that without any charge if you're a banking customer. Also at the DMV office, if you were to actually do the transaction, I'm not sure if they would actually notarize. They require, they have to notarize some information themselves, but I believe they may actually notarize your signature as well when you're titling it over. Okay, I was curious about that, so I checked into it. AI came through again, and assuming AI is correct, and I believe it is, North Carolina, they will serve as a notary, so you can actually have the transaction there in front of them and change title by signing over your title to someone else in front of the DMV, where they will actually then notarize that. I wasn't sure if that was the case. I knew they had to notarize some documents, but I wasn't sure if they would actually serve as a notary on your title, but I did a quick search on that, so I think the answer is we're good to go there. Okay, let's see what else. Photos. Be sure that you photograph the documents that are signed. I have had, in fact, recently I had a situation where I needed to go back and look at a VIN, vehicle identification number, a VIN number on an automobile that I had registered with my insurance carrier. The title had gone off to the state of North Carolina to be processed and put in my name, and I couldn't find the VIN number. And so it would have been very helpful for me to have taken a snapshot, which I didn't do. I usually do, but I didn't do that just in the rush of things. So be sure that you take photographs, which you may need to refer back to in certain situations. Also, turning in your license plates before you cancel your insurance. If you're selling a car, do not cancel coverage and then turn in your license plate after the title changes hands. If you turn in the license plate, it will show that it was surrendered the minute that you turn in that license plate. I think they type something in and it automatically says that the license was canceled, which means that if you canceled your insurance coverage, that you're required to carry in North Carolina, liability coverage, if you canceled that the morning of the day that you went and turned in your license plate, when you turn in your license plate, it would show that you had a lapse in coverage. You did not have liability coverage all the way up to the point of surrendering that license plate. So turn in the plate, and then later that day or that evening or at some point after you've turned in the plate, you can then cancel your insurance coverage, and there shouldn't be any problem. If you fail to do that, I believe there's a $50, don't worry about this for testing purposes, there's a $50 North Carolina penalty that would apply to that. This is one other FYI, I might say, that you need to keep in mind. There's been this question in previous title transfers that I've had where someone says, don't fill in the buyer's name. Just, Kevin, just go ahead and sign your name. You're signing the title over. It's being notarized. And we'll just leave the buyer's name blank because I'm not sure, as an example, the person may say, I'm not sure if I want this to be in my name or my wife's name or my child's name or exactly the name I want here. So let's just leave that blank. I was curious about that. I looked up the statute to see what it actually says on that. And as you can see here, it says, in order to assign or transfer title to any motor vehicle registered in under this article, The owner, such as the seller, shall execute in the presence of the notary. That's what they mean with that language. Include, let's see, on the reverse certificate title in form of proof of division, including in such assignment the name and the address of the transferee. That's the person that you're selling that to. And no title to any motor vehicle shall pass or vest until that assignment is executed and it's delivered to the transferee. So it seems to me that there is what I would say, a fairly clear statute that you do need the buyer's name on that line. Now there's an exception, and I believe it's down here. Yes, at the very end. If you're, let's just say that you go to a used car dealership or used car lot, and that person buys that from you. They're a dealer, a North Carolina dealer licensed to sell cars in North Carolina. You can leave that blank because the way they handle that then is the customer may come in and they can then put their name on that title as dealer, and you can leave that blank because we're not sure who the title's going to. The title's not going to the dealer, it's going to some third party, and they do have an exception for that. But if I'm just selling to you, for example, I'm going to want to put your name on that. Again, to me, that's the cleanest way the transaction could run. So trying to follow the law as much as possible can keep you out of a lot of trouble down the road, because things do pop up unexpectedly down the road where something didn't get recorded, insurance didn't get placed, coverage not obtained, what happened, what fell through the cracks. Things always just tend to happen. So just trying to help you out in understanding what needs to take place on the sale of a car. Okay, now let's talk about the finance and insurance manager's role, or the F&I guy, as some people say. You'll need to talk to our F&I person. F&I, finance and insurance. With any car purchase, you're going to end up in their, we'll call it the transaction department. This is where they have their finance person talk to you about financing options that are available on your car. In a lot of cases, let's just say we're dealing with a new automobile. They're going to offer some financing options. They're going to offer a number of other services, all the way down to, believe it or not, including insurance, like disability insurance even. I mean, there are many types of insurance or disability coverage where car payments are made if you become disabled. A lot of different services that could be added on. So do not assume that the price that you come up with on the lot, so to speak, is going to be the price that you end up with going out the door after you get through the financing insurance department. This is one of the highest profit areas of a company because of a dealership, because this is where many additional products can be sold. For example, extended warranties, service warranties. I have a list here of different things that may be offered to you by the finance and insurance area. They'll have a sheet of paper where they will walk through and they'll describe the different add-ons that you can add to your automobile. For example, rust protection, undercoating for your automobile to try to prevent salt from damaging your automobile over time. Fabric protection, paint sealant. As you can see, the list goes up. The list goes on and on things. And this is a small list. I'll say it goes on and on. On their sheet, they may have 10 or 15 additional items. What you need to think about is, do you really need any of these items? And looking at if you think that you may need these items, should you be purchasing these items at this dealership, or is it available some other place, possibly at a fraction of the cost? And so the problem that we have here is that you're kind of a captive audience or a captive customer. You're in the F&I office, you're excited about the car, you still have the smell of the seats in your shirt, that new car smell, you're excited about this, and they're offering these things and showing all of the advantages of getting these other add-ons, but you could literally add $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 of additional cost to the automobile. So in a lot of cases, in fact, if you're strong enough to do this, it's been recommended that you actually obtain the out-the-door price on that automobile, and then you go home and you sleep on it. You think about it. I can think of a really good reason to do that. One of the real good reasons to do that is that a lot of times I have gone on to a lot thinking that I may want a baseline. I just want a Toyota Highlander. That's what I'm, Toyota Highlander. And then when I get on the lot, I say, well, here's a Highlander base model. But Kevin, have you thought about the towing package? And I'm like, well, on occasion I do need to haul some things. So that towing package. And so in order to get that, you may have to go to the and I don't know the versions, LE, SE, limited, the premium package. They will have about 4 different levels of automobile that you can look at. And while you may have had in your mind, even from a budget standpoint, that you are going to go in and get the baseline model, it's reliable, I know I'm getting a good engine, good comfort, all these things, you may end up finding yourself, by the time you get to the finance and insurance department, in a car that is 3 steps higher. My wife loves the seats, the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, those types of add-ons. Well, to have that, you have to now go to the premium package. And so you may be paying $1,000 more on top of that. This is why it really makes sense to go home and sleep on it. Discuss it over dinner. You may wake up the next day and say, whoa, wait a minute. I almost bought a car that I really didn't need, and you may change your mind. In a lot of cases, people do change their minds and they take a different path. I think the same holds true with the F&I department, the finance and insurance department. These are things that you're not forced to buy that car today. And what's the risk? Okay, they could sell the car to someone else. But what are the chances of that actually happening? That they're going to sell that car today to someone else? By all means, you have the ability to go home and sleep on these things and call them back the next day. So think these things through. Do your research. For example, let me give you another example here. Extended warranties. An extended warranty, consider extended warranty versus mechanical warranties. Huge difference in the two, and I'll discuss those. Let me just jump to the next page and point that out. Extended warranties, basically they're sold when you buy the car, and they cover items that could go wrong after the primary warranty period has run out, or the standard warranty period as it states here. Typically cars will come with a 3-year, maybe even a 5-year warranty. And some of them may say bumper to bumper warranty. But then that warranty is going to expire at some point. Let's just say it's a 3-year warranty. The F&I department will let you know that this warranty is going to expire in 3 years, and don't you want to extend that? Well, you can do so for an additional X number of dollars, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 more dollars. We'll extend the drivetrain warranty, and they'll describe what could be extended for a few more years. Okay. Well, number one, that could be an extremely costly add-on, and if this is a reliable car, how long do you plan to have the car? If it's a reliable car anyway, could you just take a chance and not have to pay $2,000 today? If something goes wrong, just, take that risk and have that repair done yourself. Maybe so. But there again, inside that office in the F&I department, a lot of times these decisions, you're trying to move forward with this transaction. So it's sort of like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Okay. However, compare that to mechanical warranties. With that same automobile, you may be able to obtain much more coverage for a longer period of time, covering literally 100% of mechanical breakdown of the automobile versus maybe a more limited warranty at a fraction or a much lower cost, I might say. Call your insurance carrier. They may have a mechanical warranty arrangement where, call Geico, call your insurance carrier, whoever you use, and say, do you have a mechanical warranty? And price shop. There's nothing in fact, you're encouraged to price shop because you can find huge differences in the cost of items by, third parties. And so that's just something else you may want to keep in mind. Finally, I'll just point out one online tool that's available to you. There are many others where you can compare different prices and options, but this is one that I thought was fairly interesting. And this is where you may find a dealership advertising a low APR, 0.9% financing over a certain period of time, or a 2% financing. And you look at that number and you see it on a big billboard and say, wow, that's a low number, 2% compared to what I may have to pay at the bank if I were to go obtain a loan from the bank at 6%. It almost seems like it's a slam dunk. Take the 2%, take the 0.09%, the 1% financing. However, when you look at that, what is the dealer going to be doing most likely? They are less likely to be coming off that retail price of that car. So you're not going to be getting both. You're not going to be getting a rock bottom sale price of the automobile together with a 0.9% financing on top of that. So what you may want to do is say, well, wait a minute. I would use, what if they're offering a rebate as well? They may say 0% financing for X period of time, or $5,000 rebate. Well, which is better? 0% financing for a certain period of time, or 1% financing, compared to a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 rebate that they literally rebate you the day that you buy that car several $1,000s. Okay, so what you can do is there's a calculator here that I have used where you can put in the price of the car, and then you can compare the low interest rate financing that they have to your own bank. Let's just say, okay, I'm not going to take you up on your low interest financing of 1% or 1.9%. My bank is offering a 5% financing. I'd rather do business with them, most likely, unless the numbers really tell me that I shouldn't. So let me compare your 1.9% financing to me just going to the bank and doing a 5% financing and taking this rebate that you're offering. So if I don't do the low interest, you're going to give me $3,000 or $4,000. Okay, is it better for me to take that and use my bank at 5%, or look at your low 1.9% financing? And so you can run the numbers and find out which actually results in a better deal for you. So again, there are tools out there to help you evaluate. Bottom line, to wrap up this discussion, is I would suggest that you really do your homework, and also be prepared when you go to dealerships to not just spill all types of information to them about you, about how much you make, where you live, what your budget is, how much you can afford for a car, because that really gives them a lot of information. What you're there to find out is, you want this car, or assuming you find a car, what will you sell me this automobile for today, at your lowest price? That's the price that I want. Let's keep my trade in. I don't know that I'm going to trade my car in. I haven't made that decision yet. I'll decide that later. Just tell me what you'll sell me that car for. So there are different views, by the way, on this. Others may have different opinions about, which may be a better approach. I'm certainly not saying this is the best approach. And it's quite a bit of information on YouTube where you can find these experts who do this all the time, or who've worked in the industry, and they can give you some additional tips. And again, some of them maybe take a different approach than what I've done here. But hopefully this will prove helpful to you if you decide to sell an automobile and have those titling questions, or if you decide to go out and purchase a car. Okay, that's it for this chapter on automobile purchase decision. Remember, there is another one coming up on the automobile insurance coverage that you need to be sure to check out as well. Thank you.